Hare Krišna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Panchatattva Panchatattva Panchatattva. Jaya Panchatattva. Jaya Prabhupada 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 Srila Prabhupada. Gaur Premanandi Hayaribo Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Padaprajak Acharya Satara Sata Sri Shriman ISKCON BBT founder of Charya's Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitya Leela Prabhishta Om Vishnupad is Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai. Nam Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sika Hosh Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopanai Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Brajamumi Nabadam Ki Jai. Shri Nabadip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Lachal Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Gangamayi ki jai, Jamunamayi ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Srimati Tulsi Mahani ki jai. Most beautiful Lordship, Sri Panchatattva ki jai, Sri Gauritai ki jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Going back to home, back to Godhead ki jai. ISKCON Ljubljana Yatra ki jai. Brihad Madanga Transcendental Book Distribution ki jai. International Food for Life Transcendental Prasadam Distribution ki jai. Sri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Nitya Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bo. All glories to the Assembly devotees. All glories to the Assembly devotees. All glories to the Assembly devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Glory Srila Prabhupada. Thank you. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, for those who may not be aware, you may wonder, what does Vyasadeva have to do with this? Does Vyasadeva have anything to do with the Bhagavad-gita? And the answer is yes. He compiled Vedic literature, including the Bhagavad-gita, although Bhagavad-gita was spoken by Lord Krishna, and it was the actions on the battlefield were relayed to Dhritarashtra by his secretary Sanjaya, but the actual compilation of the Bhagavad-gita was done by Srila Vyasadeva. So we honor Vyasadeva and the entire disciplic succession whenever we speak, and therefore we will try to recite that which has been given by the disciplic succession, not otherwise. Srila Prabhupada said we should never speak anything speculative. He would deride the modern so-called philosophers, scientists, because they always say, I think, maybe, perhaps, in the future. That's not what we're presenting here. We're presenting what we have received, and we're supposed to just transmit or pass it on as we received it. No addition, no subtraction, no change. So tonight we're hearing from the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita, which is entitled Dhyana Yoga, and tonight's text is text number 8. Jnana Vijnana Triptatma Kuttasto Vijitendriyaha Yukta Ityuchate Yogi Samalostrashma Kanchanaha Jnana Vijnana Triptatma Kuttasto Vijitendriyaha Yukta Ityuchate Yogi Samalostrashma Kanchanaha Jnana Vijnana Triptatma Kuttasto Vijitendriyaha Yukta Ityuchate Yogi Samalostrashma Kanchanaha. Sanskrit pronunciation information. On that third line you see Yukta Iti, but it's spelled I-T-Y. But in the synonyms it's spelled I-T-I. So when that I changes to a Y, it indicates that there's sandhya. You should run it into the next word. You don't say iti uchate. You say yukta ityuchate. You put those two words together. Ityuchate. So yukta ityuchate yogi. Okay, please chant. Jnana Vijnana Triptatma Kuttasto Vijitendriyaha Yukta Ityuchate Yogi Samalostrashma Kanchanaha Jnana Vijnana Triptatma Kuttasto Vijitendriyaha Yukta Ityuchate Yogi Samanostrashma Kanchanaha Jnana Vijnana Triptatma Kuttasto Vijitendriyaha Yukta Ityuchate Yogi Samanostrashma Kanchanaha. Vaishnavins. Jnana Vijnana Triptatma Kuttasto Vijitendriyaha Yukta Ityuchate Yogi Samalostrashma Kanchanaha. Jnana Vijnana Triptatma Kuttasto Vijitendriyaha Yukta Ityuchate Yogi Samalostrashma Kanchanaha. So synonyms: Jnana, by acquired knowledge; Vijnana, and realized knowledge; Tripta, satisfied; Atma, a living entity; Kutastaha, spiritually situated; Vijita Indriyaha, sensually controlled; Yuktaha, competent for self-realization; Iti, thus; Uchyate, is said; Yogi, a mystic; Sama, equipoised; Lostra, pebbles; Ashma, stone; Kanchanaha, gold. Srila Prabhupada's translation for this verse: a person is said to be established in self-realization and is called a yogi or mystic when he is fully satisfied by virtue of acquired knowledge and realization. Such a person is situated in transcendence and is self-controlled. He sees everything, whether it be pebbles, stones, or gold, as the same. Srila Prabhupada's purport: book knowledge without realization of the Supreme Truth is useless. This is stated as follows: Atak Shri Krishna Namani Nabhaved Grayam Indriyai Sevan Mukhe Hijivadao Swayam Eva Spratyada. Translation: no one can understand the transcendental nature of the name, form, quality, and pastimes of Sri Krishna through his materially contaminated senses. Only when one becomes spiritually saturated by transcendental service to the Lord are the transcendental name, form, quality, and pastimes of the Lord revealed to him. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.234. This Bhagavad-gita is the science of Krishna consciousness. No one can become Krishna conscious simply by mundane scholarship. One must be fortunate enough to associate with a person who is in pure consciousness. A Krishna conscious person has realized knowledge by the grace of Krishna because he is satisfied with pure devotional service. By realized knowledge, one becomes perfect. By transcendental knowledge, one can remain steady in his convictions, but by mere academic knowledge, one can be easily deluded and confused by apparent contradictions. It is the realized soul who is actually self-controlled because he is surrendered to Krishna. He is transcendental because he has nothing to do with mundane scholarship. For him, mundane scholarship and mental speculation, which may be as good as gold to others, are of no greater value than pebbles or stones. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishnaya Bhutale Shivate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Tadavini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Vachayani Nirvashesha Srinivadi Pashatadeshani Om Agyana Timarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Sakshara Unmilitam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Madhobisham Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Upakadamayam Dadati Swapanantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Guru Vaisnavasya Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagada Raghunatham Vitam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Purjana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Malita Shri Vishakhan Vitam Hey Krishna Kadana Sindhu Dina Mando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosate Tapta Kanchana Gauri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishwavanusate Devi Pranamami Haripriya Vancha Kalpatarubhya Kripasindhu Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasati Gaura Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So Prabhupada explains in the last sentence of his purport what is actually being referred to here. Because otherwise somebody may think that, let's read the translation again just so we are on the same page. A person is said to be established in self-realization and is called a yogi or mystic when he is fully satisfied by virtue of acquired knowledge and realization. Such a person is situated in transcendence and in self-control. He sees everything, whether it be pebbles, stones, or gold, as the same. So it doesn't mean that this person is foolish, a self-realized person is foolish. They can't distinguish between pebble, stone, or gold. So if they come to you to buy gold, you can give them some stones and they'll be happy. No, it means they see Krishna everywhere. And they see everything in Krishna. Prabhupada once said, you think you're sitting on the floor, but I know I'm sitting on Krishna. So it's not that Prabhupada was not seeing a floor. And he explained it, because sometimes devotees were confused about it. He said it's not that when the pure devotee sees, he's not seeing a tree and cars and the street. No, but he knows that all of those manifestations are manifestations of Krishna's energy. And therefore he knows how to properly utilize them. Prabhupada once said that in India, there are some so-called, so advanced yogis that they don't take money. You try to give them some donation. I don't touch money. Prabhupada said, we're not so foolish. Give me. Give me money. Because the devotee knows what to do with money. Construct temples, print books, spread Krishna consciousness. Festivals, all of these things require money. We're living in a cash economy. Right? Even to make some sladoled, you can't go to the shop and necessarily think that you're going to get the milk for free or the sugar for free. Everything requires money. We're living in a cash economy. And nowadays, people are not trained. In the Vedic culture, people are trained to give charity. If they get something of value, like I said, that Shukadeva Goswami, when he left home, 16-year-old boy walking naked, he would stop at a householder's place just long enough for the cow to be milked. He would give transcendental knowledge and they would give him some milk. So exchange, like that. Everybody was trained that if you get something of value, you give something of value in return, according to your means. Just like we have in the Vedic culture, the concept of Atiti Narayan, that anyone who comes to your door, whether invited or not, should be treated like Narayan, which means kindly, with respect. 3 things should be done. Somebody comes to your door, whether it's the temple door, or your home door, or your office door, or whatever it is, please come in. First thing, you offer a seat, then you offer some refreshment according to your means again. If you're a very wealthy person, you can offer a lot. If you're a poor man, at least a cup of water. And some sweet words, my dear sir, you've been traveling, maybe you're a little tired, something nice, and then you inquire why they came. Nowadays in Kali Yuga, nobody's trained like that. Somebody knocks on your door, you look through the peephole and you say, "Good, what are you doing here? Get away from, I don't know you, get away from here," like that. Very crude society we're living in. No respect, even for family, what to speak of strangers. So in the Vedic culture, it's not like that. Vedic culture, people are trained that if you get something of value, whether it's spiritual knowledge, which is actually the most valuable thing, as it's being described here, knowledge, acquired knowledge. First of all, one has to acquire knowledge. And then by putting that into practice, one becomes realized. A simple example, just like today we went to Top Pizza. So I was discussing with Sasha the formula for the recipe for making, because the dough is the most important part. If you don't start out with a good dough, then it doesn't matter what you put on top. So, and he was explaining the same that I learned in New York. You have to cure the dough for at least 48 hours. He was explaining very technically, because then the yeast eats all the sugars and it makes a better dough like that. So when you hear that knowledge, now you've acquired that knowledge. You take the flour, finest Napoli flour, you add some water, some yeast, you let it rise, you punch it down, you let it rise, you punch it down, you cut it into the appropriate pieces, you wrap it up and put it away in the refrigerator. It has to be at a certain temperature, because if the temperature is too high, then the yeast will eat the proteins instead, not just the sugars. It's a science. So one can hear the science, but until you go into the kitchen and actually do it, it's not realized knowledge, it's just theoretical knowledge. So first of all, we have to acquire theoretical knowledge, but from the right source. Like if you go to somebody else who doesn't know how to make pizza, they may give you some completely bogus formula, and you'll wind up with a pancake instead of a pizza. So we have to hear from the right source, and then we're expected to put that knowledge into practice. So now we're on the path of Bhakti Yoga, and here in this chapter, Krishna is describing Dhyana Yoga. But in any yoga practice, you have to hear first of all from the right source. What is the goal of this yoga? What is the process for achieving that goal? What is to be done and what's not to be done? That's always the beginning, yama yama. Prescriptions, proscriptions. And then once you have that theoretical knowledge, you have to put it into practice. It's not armchair philosophy. Prabhupada said when he first went to New York, he was trying to preach what we would call uptown, to the higher socioeconomic class of people. But those people are armchair philosophers. Yes, they had heard of Bhagavad-gita and they were interested to hear Bhagavad-gita, but they're the kind of people who sit down in nice chairs, somebody recites something from Gita, and then after the class is over, they smoke a cigar or they drink some wine. So not really interested in achieving the goal of Bhagavad-gita. Just want to acquire knowledge for the sake of acquiring knowledge. And I felt I was in that class myself, not upper socioeconomic, but inquisitive. So I was running in a crowd of young men that we were very inquisitive. We would, go to esoteric bookstores and buy all kinds of esoteric books and read them and discuss. But we were not trying to achieve the goal of life, Krishna Prema. No, we just wanted to sound intelligent. Just to sound intelligent. So that kind of book knowledge, as Prabhupada is saying here, is useless. One has to get practical knowledge from the right source and then apply that knowledge, and then one will be making good advancement. So again, the devotee is not foolish, not unable to distinguish between stones, gold, and pebbles. No, Prabhupada is very, very astute. He was extremely upset when devotees, due to their naivete, they were being cheated, especially in India, constructing temples. One time Prabhupada, he had traveled to Mauritius for the first time, and the government there, they were not necessarily favorable, but they were at least cultured enough that they thought, here's an Indian Swami, they should treat him nicely. So one of the ministers gave one of his cars and a driver to take Prabhupada around. And Prabhupada went on one journey, and when they were coming back, there was an accident between Prabhupada's car going downhill and another car coming around a curve, and they crashed. But Ramananda was noting that before the accident happened, Prabhupada planted his cane on the floor of the car, so he knew it was coming. And he probably got some injuries on his leg, on his face, and the other devotees in the car also got injured. I think Pushta Krishna was in the front seat next to the driver, and he slammed his head on the windshield. And the people in the other car, they also got injured. Oh, they were killed? Yeah. Hare Krishna. So it was a bad accident. But then Prabhupada, from there, he went to Africa. I think it was Kenya, if I remember correctly. And but while he was there, he was getting reports that the construction of the temple in Bombay was not going well. And he probably knew that the devotees were cheated. So he cut his Africa visit short and he went back to Bombay. And he fired the chief engineer because he blamed him for not advising the devotees properly how to buy in materials and stuff like that. The point is, the pure devotee is conscious of everything. It's not that they're making mistakes and taking sugar to make cement or something like that. Very, very aware of what's going on. So we shouldn't misunderstand this, that he sees everything pebble, stone, or gold is the same. No, the devotees are very, very astute. And they can see when they're being cheated and they don't like to be cheated, because Krishna, with great difficulty, Prabhupada is collecting money around the world to build these India projects. And he did not want to be cheated, even by one paisa if possible. But we're living in this material world, and as Prabhupada's Guru Bhaktisiddhanta said, this is a world of cheaters and the cheated, in every sphere, up to and including spiritual life. After many, many years of suffering in the material world, a living entity finally starts looking towards real knowledge. But if they're unfortunate, and most of them are, they get cheated. They get cheated. So many incarnations were coming to America, especially from India. They would come to America, cheat people, sell them a mantra. Like one of my godbrothers is no longer with us. He met one such cheating guru. He paid $35 for a one-word mantra. Aing. So he was going around all day chanting aing, 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 aing. Those who chant the Gayatri mantra know that word, aing. Or somebody else who paid $35 for clean, 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 clean. So many cheaters were coming. So many so-called incarnations. But the pure devotee is not like that. The pure devotee, again, they know, they can distinguish. And Prabhupada said intelligence means being able to distinguish between matter, spirit, and understanding the source of both. That's the real definition of intelligence. So one may have so many degrees, but if one cannot distinguish between matter and spirit and does not know the controller of both, then one is not considered intelligent in real spiritual circles. So, here Krishna is advising Arjuna how to recognize. Arjuna is a pure devotee, so he knows all of this, but he's playing the role so that we can be educated. So we are striving for self-realization. But how do we know when we're self-realized? Or how do we know when somebody's self-realized or making an advancement in self-realization? Yes, this was stated back in the second chapter. How does Krishna... Because Arjuna was inquiring, how will I recognize somebody that is advanced? How do they sit? How do they walk? How do they speak? Yeah. Yes. 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 Okay. Yes. The main one from that series, and that we can apply to ourselves, is Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partan manohita. When a man gives up all desire for sense gratification, which arises from mental concoction, and when the mind becomes satisfied in the self, then you know you're making advancement. So that's related to what's being stated here. Fully satisfied by virtue of acquired knowledge and realization. So we have to see, the more we are giving up ideas for making plans for sense gratification, which, as Maharaj was pointing out this morning, they never fructify. It's hopeless. It's like he was saying, chasing a mirage into the desert and then building a house there. It's like in the Christianity, they say that a wise man builds his house on the rock. A foolish person will build on the sand. Or like in California, where I've lived for the last 32 years before moving back to New York, they build on these cliffs right next to the ocean. They build on a cliff. And then lo and behold, over time, the cliff erodes and the house starts falling into the ocean. And they're wondering, what happened to my beautiful house? Any intelligent child would know, this isn't going to last. It's not going to last. And then they wonder why they can't get home insurance anymore. Because insurance companies are tired of, paying claims for $10 million homes that slide into the ocean. So even material knowledge nowadays is, like they say, common sense is not so common. People don't have any common sense even anymore. They're just so driven by desire for sense gratification that they become blinded to the obvious, even materially, what to speak of spiritually. So such a person is situated in transcendence. That means, what are we transcending? That Krishna also explains, that the material nature means three modes, and the only way you can transcend those three modes is to surrender to Him. Daiviyesha, Gunamaye, Mama Maya, Duratya. Mamevaye Prapadyante, Mayam Etam, Turantate. Those three modes of nature, until we transcend them, we definitely feel their influence. Sometimes we're in a mode of goodness, we want to learn, we want to teach, we're clean. But if we're not careful, we get dragged down to the mode of passion. We start developing endless desires for sense gratification. And when one is in the mode of passion and not careful, then one is influenced by the mode of ignorance, which is laziness, sleep, intoxication. So all the symptoms are there. They're described in the Bhagavad-gita. And it's not for theoretical discussion, it's for practical application. So the only way to go forward to get out of the material morass is to surrender to Krishna. And that surrender has been made easy in this age, because in this age we don't live very long. Payanapo yasa shabda kalo asmin yagejana manda sumanda matayo manda bhagya hi upadrita. First thing is, we don't live very long. As we were discussing a few days ago, the oldest living Srila Prabhupada disciple is Amala Bhakta Maharaj. He'll be 93 in October. And people say, wow, 93, that's not very old. 93 is not very old. Any child after a few days of learning arithmetic can count to 100. It's not very much. But because our duration of life has been reduced so much already, we think 93 is an old man. Wow. Not very old. So we have to utilize the time properly. This age, because we don't live very long, we've been given this sublime process. Due to the influence of the modes of nature, people engage in sinful activities. And as long as one is engaged in sinful activities, one can never understand God or even the process of God consciousness. It's not possible. Because the intelligence becomes covered. The intelligence is supposed to distinguish between what should be done and what should not be done. But that has to be trained properly. If one's intelligence is not trained, one may think that one is distinguishing, but inevitably will make mistakes. So the trained intelligence can distinguish between what is to be done and what is not to be done. The demons, they don't care. Krishna explains that in the 16th chapter, that the first indicator that somebody's on the demoniac slide is prabhritim cha, nivritim cha, jana, navidur asura. They don't know what is to be done and what is not to be done, and they don't care. Whatever. Let me do my thing. Let me live life the way I want to live. Prabhutimcha nibratimcha jana na vidur asura. Nasocham na pichachara nasatyam teshu bijate. They're not clean. They're unclean. Prabhupada was shocked when he moved to New York in the 60s that some people would take bath once a week. And that was considered okay. Whereas in the Vedic culture, you should take at least one bath every day. At least more than one if you can. And in certain orders of life, you must take more than one. But for instance, brahmacharis, as we were discussing, you become so regulated that you wake up, you evacuate, you take bath, and then you can serve the spiritual master for the rest of the day. If you don't have opportunity to take another bath, that's okay. Householders generally are not so finely regulated. Generally, some are, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, we were reading his schedule. But so everybody must take bath upon rising. Upon rising, you take bath. And generally, you should rise before sunrise, at least early enough. You should rise to come to the Mangal Arati. And then later on, naturally, you may evacuate, then you have to take bath after evacuating. That's a must in Vedic culture. And those in the sannyasa order are expected to take bath 3 times a day. Others can also, it's not that you can't, but that's one of the recommendations for the sannyasa order, take bath 3 times a day. Trisandhya. So they're not clean. They're not clean. And we've heard from Ayurveda that there are 3 gateways to illness. You become ill by being unclean, by being anxious, having a lot of anxiety in the mind, and by overeating. Those are the 3 main things. There may be others, but those are the 3 main gateways to ill health. So one should be regulated, try to eat the same amount at the same time every day, and then the body works very nicely. And one should live a lifestyle that doesn't promote any anxiety. If we are following the recommended process for the age, self-realization, then we shouldn't have any anxiety. We're doing the right thing, we're doing the recommended thing, which pleases Krishna. And how do we know that Krishna is pleased? If Krishna's representative is pleased. One time in Atlanta, there was Prabhupada was there, and most of the Sankirtan devotees from around America, they converge on that place. So in the question and answer period, my godbrother Arcita prabhu, he asked Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, what pleases you the most, or what would please you the most? And he was expecting Prabhupada to say, if you double book distribution or triple, or Prabhupada said, if you learn to love Krishna. If you learn to love Krishna, which is the goal of Bhakti Yoga, to revive our Krishna consciousness. So we should take that seriously. It's a process that you can judge yourself. You don't have to get a degree from somebody else or a rubber stamp that you're making advancement. You can judge your own advancement. How much are we increasing our love and attachment for Krishna? Very simple. And we have to know how to do that. We can judge that in day-to-day relationships, how much I like you or I don't like you. We're conscious, that much conscious we should be. How are my relationships going? So we should also judge, how is my relationship with Krishna progressing? Am I really seeing Gaurnitai when I look at the altar? Am I eager to please them, do something to please them? Understanding that I really can't do anything without their mercy, but at least desiring to please them. Very, very simple process. If we don't care, if we're just going through the motions, that means we have some ways to go. But if we go on chanting Hare Krišna every day, taking prasadam, associating with devotees, naturally, gradually, that covering of ignorance, passion, the 2 lower modes, start to lessen. And one becomes more and more situated in the mode of goodness. And from the mode of goodness, one can be promoted to Shuddha Sattva, which is the ultimate goal, state of consciousness, to be in the unshakable faith and unshakable determination for serving Krishna. That can be achieved in this lifetime. So Prabhupada would say, try for it. Sacrifice this one life. So many other lifetimes you've chased after the mirage. But Lord Chaitanya is so kind that he chases after us. And that's stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Tyaktva shadushya raja lakmi dharmishta arya vachasa yada gadaranyam maya mrgam dayata ipsita anpadabad bande mahapurushate charanabhin. This is Lord Chaitanya. He's so kind. We are chasing after the mirage. We want to build a house in the desert, and he's chasing after us, saying, no, 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 come with me. Just chant and dance. Take prasadam. As we were reading in the passing of Haridas Thakur, taking prasadam is very important. It's one of the important processes. Chant, dance, Prabhupada would say, it's such a simple process. Just chant, Hare Krishna, dance. Don't just stand like a column, dance. Dancing is important. Prabhupada showed that, especially in that Rath Yatra, where he danced the entire way, London. The cops, the bobbies as they call them in London, were shocked. Tell the old man to sit down. But Prabhupada is dancing the whole way. So chant, dance, take prasadam, and just give submissive oral reception to Bhagavad-gita as it is, Srimad Bhagavatam as it is, Nectar of Devotion as it is. All of them as it is, because they're coming from the pure source. No speculation required. And then, if you appreciate something, Prabhupada said, whatever you appreciate about this process, just give it to others. So again, if you're a prasadam bhakta, if you come here just to take sladaled, then tell others. Go to the Hare Krishna temple and take sladaled, or halava, or whatever your favorite preparation is. And it works. Prabhupada said, if you're so dull that you can't understand this philosophy, then eat your way back to Godhead. Just come here and eat prasadam. He said, we're willing to feed you. Prabhupada repeated that many times. You're struggling out in the material world, you're not happy. Come to the Hare Krishna temple, we'll feed you. Why don't you do that? They make so many excuses why they can't do that. But it's an open invitation. It's an open invitation. The devotees are always eager and willing to feed as many people as possible. And if the government gives some help, we could feed the entire Slovenia, prasadam. Now, sometimes we confuse that prasadam is just food for life, where we take dal, rice, and sabji and we go out and give to poor people. No, okay, we call that food for life, but there's also food for money, like we have restaurants. And Prabhupada said at one point, we don't need to open any more temples. We have enough temples, but you should open restaurants/reading rooms. And he gave the formula. The books should be there. People should come. One price for everybody. All you can eat. But you're not allowed to take any leftovers. Whatever you take, you have to eat. Otherwise, people will cheat. They'll fill up their plate. They'll eat a little bit and then take the rest. So Prabhupada said, no. One price you pay, but all you can eat, but you have to eat what you take. So you take a little at a time, and then when you're satisfied, bas. No taking home leftovers. So Prabhupada was so on top of everything. He was such a visionary. He said, my greatest problem is that I can't think small. So Prabhupada was always making big plans and bigger plans and bigger plans for expanding Krishna consciousness. But he told us that if you can't expand what I've left you, just before he left, he said, then maintain it at least. So whatever we have been given, we should at least try to maintain it nicely. Keep the temple clean, keep the devotees satisfied, keep them engaged. At least maintain. But maintenance is in the mode of goodness, so it's very difficult, because most people are in the mode of passion and ignorance. So to maintain anything is a big, big problem. They like to create, they like to destroy, but they don't like to maintain. So we should try to avoid that trap as devotees living in ISKCON centers. Maintain nicely whatever is there already. Yes, we can make plans to expand, but if we're not maintaining what we have already, why should Krishna allow us to expand? And we've seen that. There's rapid expansion, no maintenance, and then the whole thing falls apart. So we need to demonstrate to Sri Panchatattva that we can maintain this facility very nicely, and
also demonstrate that there's a need for expansion because so many people are coming and we don't have room for them. This is how Krishna consciousness expands organically. We don't just go somewhere and build a big temple. We establish a center, and when people in that area become more and more interested, the center becomes so packed that we need to maybe rent a house and then maybe buy a house, and like that, you expand organically. But money is meant for this purpose, for expanding Krishna consciousness. I remember one time in the Potomac area, how many of you have been to the Potomac Temple? They say the Washington, D.C. temple, but it's actually Potomac, about 40 minutes away from D.C. proper. So only Maharaj. But anyway, that area was originally just farmland. And then the devotees acquired 16 acres. And they had a nice little house there, Prabhupada stayed there. But gradually over time, all that farmland got sold off, and all these big multi-million-dollar mansions were built. And a lot of them are owned by Indians. So Gopal Krishna Maharaj used to preach there, and I remember I went with him to one house program, and he was kind of chastising them, said, pointing to the different families in the room. He said, I remember you when you first came, you and your wife and 2 children, you had a 1-bedroom apartment, then you got a 3-bedroom apartment, then you bought a 3-bedroom house, and now you have a $10 million mansion. So just like you keep changing and improving your living circumstances, don't you think you should improve Krishna's also? So we should always think how we can improve Krishna. Krishna's God, He owns everything, but we're demonstrating our love by trying to make Him more and more comfortable and accommodate Him in nicer and nicer quarters. So now, finally, after many, many years, just a few years ago, they built a nice temple there. But, so this is the motivation. Not for Prabhupada said, our temples are not a place, our temples are not places for people to come and just eat and sleep. They're bases from which we send our men out to fight with Maya. And what do we take out to fight with Maya? These big bombs. And just like many military munitions, they may not explode immediately. Sometimes you throw the big bomb and it just lies there and you wonder what happened. But I gave an example. When I was living in the San Diego community in the early 90s, I always like to ask devotees how they come to Krishna consciousness. So there was one new devotee, newly initiated, so I asked him, how did you get in? So he was from a very well-to-do family in that area. And while he was growing up, his mother had gotten a Bhagavad-gita, but she just put it on the bookshelf and she never read it. But gradually over years he read it, and he became convinced. So before he moved into the temple, when he just graduated high school, his parents asked him, what do you want as a graduation present? He said, I want to go to London. So they were wondering, why London? There are so many places you could go. We condone your travel desire, but why London? He said, because I've read in a magazine, back to Godhead, that the Hare Krishna restaurant in London is the best. So they bought him a ticket. He went to London, went to Soho Street. How many of you have been there? Soho Street Temple and Restaurant. And the rest is history. He became a devotee. So that book that his mother bought and never read, sat on the bookshelf, made her son a devotee. And now that son, if he remains a good devotee, he will deliver his mother and so many generations forward and backward. So these books, Prabhupada said, this is our business. These temples are bases from which we send our men to fight with the illusory energy, Maya, and we take our ammunition, these books, and we just drop these bombs out there. And some of them may explode immediately. I know in my case, I got one little pamphlet, Krishna, the Reservoir of Pleasure. I kept it in my backpack, literally unread for a couple of months. It was just there, and then one night I was early for some nonsense engagement, and what to do, took out and immediately grabbed me. Very first sentence, Prabhupada says, Krishna, that name is transcendental. Krishna means the highest pleasure. Every one of us is looking for pleasure, but we don't know where to look. So as a, college student, studying hard but also partying hard, that really grabbed me. Yeah, I'm running around looking for pleasure, but I don't really know where to find it. So I immediately went to the Henry Street Temple and like that. So Prabhupada said, if they read one line, even just one word, they will be benefited. And our departed God Brother Surya, he used to say, if they read one line, even just one word, soon they will be living in the temple, eating sabji with curd. So that's the benefit of reading Prabhupada's books. Any little part that they read will benefit them. So don't be despair. Sometimes devotees say, we've distributed so many books in America, millions of books, literally, and we don't see that so many people are. But don't worry, even if they don't come in this lifetime, Christians, once they start the process, just like when we go out on Harinam, sometimes you chant Hare Krishna and people cover their ears. I don't know if you see it here, but in America you see it a lot. So I always tell the devotees, don't worry. By the time they do that, it's too late. That mantra is already gone in there. And it's going to germinate. Recently I was reading, our Arcita prabhu, who used to be the Sankirtan minister, he is no longer, but he has a Google group where he puts out Sankirtan stories. So he just put out a story from London where one female book distributor, she met a woman, and the woman, her whole life, she's been chanting Hare Krishna because she heard it as a child. She has never been contacted by the Krishna consciousness movement, had nothing to do with devotees, but she just heard the mantra as a child, and her whole life she's been chanting. And so this fateful day, she met this book distributor, she bought a couple of books, and it was just timely because her brother had just passed away, and she was really seriously thinking what happens after death and like that. So Krishna, once they start, you chant Hare Krishna seriously or in jest or whatever, Krishna will never let you go. So yeah, I'll finish with this one verse that explains the power of the mantra. In the Ajami Leela, when the Yamadutas came back and were complaining or inquiring from Yamaraj, how is it that these beautiful men from Vaikuntha, they were able to stop us. Nobody has ever been able to stop us from taking a sinful soul. So Yamaraj is explaining the power of the Hare Krishna mantra, of chanting the holy names. So he says, Agyanad Atavagyanad Uttama Shloka Namayad Sankirtatim Agang Pungso Dahed Edo Yatanala. He says, just as a fire can consume any amount of fuel that you put into it, similarly, just one time chanting this Hare Krishna mantra or the holy names of the Lord will burn up more sin than you can, the reactions to more sin than you can commit. Now that doesn't mean that we should go out and commit sin. We know the seventh offense to the holy name is to commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting. So we don't do that. But the potency is there. Anybody who chants Hare Krishna even one time. Therefore, when I joined, we were trained that when you go out and try to sell back to Godhead or whatever, mostly we were doing BTGs, that if a person doesn't buy, just ask them, can you say Hare Krishna? Because if you can get a person to say Hare Krishna even one time, their material life is over. Okay, we can stop here. Any questions? Discussion? Yes? All right.
It came to my mind the story about Ajamil, and I was never clear about that point, how Ajamil pronounced name Narayan without offenses. So without offenses in way that he didn't make a symbol for activities and consciously chant name of Narayan to delete it.
Right.
But which way Vishnadutas, according to that chant of Narayan, came? Is that according to his previous pious activities, or how to explain that phenomena that he didn't call Narayan name to calling Vishnu, but to calling his son, and still Vishnu Dutas came.
Yes.
That is little always about story of Ajahn.
Yeah, so Prabhupada explained that in one lecture. He said, just like in your city, he was in America, I don't remember if it was LA or New York, but anyway, big city. So he said, just like in your city, the police are always driving around. And then when the call comes in, something is happening, then they come. So he says, similarly, the servants of Krishna, the Vishnu Dutas, they're always circulating. They're always out there. And when they hear their master's name, they come. So they heard Narayan. Okay, anything else?
I mean, sorry, just in
Yeah, no
addition, ordinary person who is not pious enough cannot pronounce God's name at the end of life. Obviously, no. Like Ajahn did it. It is according to his pious activities as well.
Yeah, so there's obviously a quality to the chanting, but the effect is there. The effect is there anyway. Any way you say Krishna, it's explained in one verse, I can't remember the verse now exactly, but it says that even if the name is pronounced in a broken way, you say Ra here, and then you say something else, and you say Ma over here, it's put together. You said Rama. Or Prabhupada uses the example of a Muslim. The Muslims, they don't believe in Vishnu, Narayan, all that, but this one Muslim, he was being gored to death by a boar. And he said, Haram, which in his language means, oh, what a misfortune. But he said, Haram. And Prabhupada said, because of that, he was liberated. So the holy name of the Lord works, whether we know it or we don't know it. It works. Potency is there. Okay, Grantaraj Shri Bhagavad-gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.